always worried about the other camera.
Mike and I usually have the worst
Here,
angle
move over.
possible, most unflattering
Whoa.
angle possible.
Yes.
There we go.
No.
Up there, they are.
Oh, here we are.
back.
Hey. Oh my goodness. Lost in space and time for over 10,000 years. We have returned.
We are.
We're the Comic Shop. This is a podcast. I am your host.
Yeah, you are our host.
Evan Coy here with a very special guest host.
Michael Callie.
No, we're here with a special guest star. Oh, Martin's a very special guest star. Sorry,
Yeah.
you go.
Where's Aaron?
I know.
I'm cranky.
I don't normally pilot the ship like this.
No.
And then we're here with our regular guest star.
Hello in streaming land.
Yeah, Scott Bandla. Thanks for being here.
Hey, no, thanks
Local nerdologist.
Thanks for asking me back. It's
One
a
of my
pleasure.
favorite things when we sit down to talk with you, or when you visit the store, is that you carry the bulk of the conversation, and you.
No choking.
When you're not
So sorry
sneezing
about
and coughing.
So sorry about
And I love talking to you. You're so interesting. You know, just
Stuff.
there's a depth of knowledge here that I think everybody has in regards to pop culture and such.
Sure.
But then, like, I talk to you and I'm like, oh boy, I'm just.
Yeah, but this is all I do.
Yeah.
I mean, this, like I spend the bulk of my days scrolling through various feeds of things
Mhm.
and curating links and videos and stuff into feeds.
And making it impossible for someone to go to your Facebook page to find something specifically they saw that you had posted before, because they have to scroll for like hours and
That's right.
hours before they
There's
find it.
never a slow news day in the entertainment
No.
world,
No,
frankly.
there's not.
You are a pop culture newsman. I never, because
You should do a podcast.
Yeah, oftentimes it's like, oh, did you see this? Scott just posted it. And it's like, oh, now we have to read.
Yeah, huh?
Yep, that's great.
We
That's
covered this, Martin.
I want you on. I want you on weekly.
No, and I appreciate the callback in the post about tonight's podcast. that was silly and fun.
Hey, before we do that, let's talk about Death Trap, though.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Tell me.
Yeah. So we're gonna start with some local fun.
Yes.
So the Oswego Players, theatrical organization out at Fort Ontario that has been doing shows for decades. I mean, it's it's the best kept secret in Oswego because very few people seem to know about it. So I appreciate you giving me a little beat here to plug our upcoming show. We're doing Ira Levin's play Death Trap, which is a murder thriller about an aging playwright named Sidney Bruhl who hasn't had a hit in a while, but he's had a few in his past. So he gives like writing seminars to up-and-coming playwrights. And the thrust of this play is that at one of these seminars, he meets a young playwright.
Martin, this is the thrust.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I had the bad thought too.
Thank you. I'm here all week.
Innuendo there at the shop.
Clifford Anderson is an up-and-coming playwright who has written a play called Death Trap, which Sidney thinks is brilliant. And there's a possibility that Sidney is willing to kill this kid to steal the play and publish it under his own name so that he can rise through the ranks again and
Yeah, Martin, it's Innuendo Day, and it's
Yeah.
Killing Children Day here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like,
You're right,
I
it
feel like
is.
this conversation has come up a couple times.
Now I've seen this same plot in Columbo.
yes. There are
I
of
did
course
when I was doing my backwards
No,
Columbo
yeah.
watch. Yeah,
there
it was one of
are
the
there are
first.
lots of twists and turns in this play.
Sure.
You're never really quite sure who is manipulating whom, and so it's really the lengths that someone will go to recapture fame, manipulating people close to them and whatnot. And so my eldest son Will is playing the young playwright Clifford in this. A good friend of mine, Bill Callum, is playing Sidney Bruhl, and watching the two of them sort of have this huge back and forth on stage. They carry the bulk of this show. They have so much dialogue, so many monologues, and they're just killing it every day.
Awesome.
Pun only slightly intended. I actually I stepped in sort of last minute to play Sidney's attorney who has some information for him that affects the decisions that Sydney makes regarding the lengths that he's going to go to recapture his old fame. Yeah, there is so much going on in this play that when the fit hits the shan, we had our opening weekend last weekend, and audiences were, I mean, no exaggeration, literal gasps from the audience as things sort of start to go all hinky with this show.
I heard it was so well received that this weekend is closing weekend.
That's right.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that's
Why only
right.
2 weeks do you guys do these, by the way?
Honestly, that those decisions are made far above my pay grade.
That's a lot of work, though.
For
I-
2 weeks,
yeah.
for 2 weekends, yeah.
You know, the players' season, they try to do a certain number of shows every year, and in order to accommodate the rehearsal schedules and the set building and all that kind of stuff, they keep it moving along, so there's always something fresh happening. Like this fall, they're going to do a production of one of my favorite plays, Arsenic and Old Lace, which I hope to be involved with as well when the
I
time
didn't
comes.
realize
I was stage crew for that in high school.
Oh, there you
at
go.
Red Creek.
I didn't realize how much you were into this. It was only like a year ago, I feel like, what were you in? But I was like, oh, I didn't realize it's got acts. But it was,
So it was probably 2 years ago.
maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. But,
COVID time.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to work on several player shows in the last few years. I've actually been doing shows with them on and off since 2002.
You know that Michael wasn't even born then?
Yes, I was.
He was, I want to say Michael
Birthday
was
buddies.
5.
Birthday
Michael was
buddies.
5
You
in
were correct.
2002.
Happy birthday to both of you yesterday.
Thank you.
2
Yes,
days ago.
we were
Yeah.
birthday
Oh,
buddies.
I only learned after the fact that Michael and I share a May 14th birthday.
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't come up last year either. I didn't realize it either. He remembered. But
Yeah, it's been one of my favorite trivia facts forever, is that I have the same birthday as you.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
And we
that's
share
Mr.
the,
Bandla.
we
Yeah.
share the birthday with George Lucas,
Yes, we share.
which
Oh,
is
wow.
interesting.
Yep, George
David
Lucas.
Byrne from the Talking Heads,
Yep.
Kate Blanchett
Yes.
has a May 14th birthday. Robert Zemeckis has a May 14th birthday.
Less exciting Mark
it's a lot of
Zuckerberg.
special effects birthdays.
That's
Yes.
right.
Michael, what'd you say?
I said less exciting Mark Zuckerberg, also May 14th, baby.
Congratulations, guys.
Well, now I got to change it. No, that's not okay. I feel like I just got poked and I didn't ask for it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe you can hop into a time machine and take care of that problem
Yeah.
He's the least evil
of the.
of the billionaires right now, right?
I think he's an android.
I mean, there's Data, there's Lore, and then there's Zuckerberg.
yeah.
Right.
And B4
And, well,
and LOL.
we don't talk about it before.
That's Star Trek nerd stuff, in case you didn't know.
That's okay. Yeah,
This
so
table appreciated
but
it,
let me close the loop on Death Trap by saying we have 3 performances coming up this
Excellent.
weekend. Tomorrow night, Friday, and Saturday at 7:30 at the Francis Marion Brown Theater at the Fort, and then we have a matinee Sunday at 2:00.
Excellent.
So any Central New York area people, if you're looking for something to do that maybe is a little bit off your beaten track, please come up and see our show. We put a lot of work into it. I think it comes off incredibly well. And it's a thrilling and it's also twistedly funny in some unexpected ways. So I think it would be a great thing for you to do with your weekend.
Excellent. I'm making an effort, but I don't know if it's going to come to fruition. But
You know, it's the thought and the ticket sales, but
Yeah.
sometimes the thought.
Just buy a ticket, don't
Yeah.
show up. It's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Just give him $20 cash. And,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's all it's really about. Really,
I
is
think
the
we
money.
wouldn't say no to that, frankly, but that's all right.
Jonathan Legman, Star Trek got a shout out on Who.
A very funny one.
Martin was forcing some Doctor Who on me in the back room today. And I
Amongst
think-
other things.
Amongst other things.
I don't,
I wasn't part
should
of
I
this.
be here for this conversation? Because I think the less I know, the less I can accidentally reveal when questioned.
There's a therapist upstairs. They're helping us to work this
That's
out.
that's
But,
important. It's good.
I think I told you last time, I don't understand or know the Doctor Who universe well at all. Watching these, was the Christmas episode and the first
In the first 2 episodes
of the season?
of
Yeah.
season 1, yes.
I loved it. It was great.
Very fun.
It was just the characters were so fun. I love the music villain. The Christmas thing. I was just going to Martin. What on earth is going on right now? Like this is just so bizarre. And then if you tie that into like, well, there's 50 plus years of history with this. It was 50 or 60.
60. This
60
is
years
we are
of-
now in year 61 of Doctor Who.
Then I go, boy, I get it. I can see why people, and, again, my exposure is very limited, but boy, those were really fun. And I was just kind of bouncing in and out, dealing with customers coming in the back, watching a little bit.
He really liked the snot and the fart jokes, so
Sure. Well,
that
and
was the
that's Russell T Davies for you. He can write high drama, but he is not above going for scatological humor when it's called for. Bodily functions and whatnot, because he really does believe in the notion that Doctor Who is a family show.
Yeah.
So every age group within a family can really be represented in the show, and he goes for it.
And I love that too, because I feel like it's not, maybe I'm not the target audience, but I see how I could be very much so. But also, just the wide range of humor, pretty intense drama at certain moments. Like the one musical villain I loved. Oh, the personality they had was just larger than life. There was an element of scary and suspense, but it also didn't feel over the top, or well, maybe it did feel over the top. You could share this with everybody, I think, and that's what's very interesting. What's your? I always thought the Doctor Who was the low budget thing, and then watching today, I go, oh, there's money here.
Well, yeah. So all the classic era that I went on and on and on about back in November, that was made with BBC money.
Yeah, 47 cents an episode.
Yeah. They spent, Doctor Who had the same budget back in the day that any standard present day drama production had. And they had to figure out how to do outer space effects, alien worlds, alien creatures with the same budget that your average hour-long drama has. So the fact that the creative teams of the old show were able to do everything that they did is incredible. And at the time too, there was no such thing as home video. From the early '60s when it started into the early mid '80s, VCRs weren't a thing, or in the late '70s, early '80s when they started coming around, they were really only available to people who could spend a truckload of money on expensive video equipment.
And BBC literally thought that it was one and done material, because they allowed so much of it to get lost.
Right.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. So the production teams never anticipated
longevity.
that people would be able to go back and rewatch an episode once it had been broadcast. So they did the best they could with really short schedules, very little money, and they thought, like Martin said, it was just broadcast once and then never to be seen again. So that they really didn't think they didn't think people would be able to go back and see the strings that were holding up, weird creatures, or the cardboard flats, wobbling when somebody runs by or whatever. So when the home videos started coming out in the 80s and really boomed in the 90s, much of the series got released on VHS and then got remastered for DVD, and then over the last, I'm going to say erroneously, maybe 6 or 7 years, they've been putting out these Blu-ray full season sets of the old show that probably look better now on Blu-ray than they did at broadcast. Really depthful special features, talking to anyone who's still alive from the production of a particular season. But a lot of what they talk about is, we did what we could with what we had, and had we had more time and more money, we could have done da-da-da-da-da. So fast forward to 2005, when Russell T Davies brought it back. The BBC was willing to...
Who is Russell T Davies? His name has come up several times today.
Folk.
Yeah, he is a British writer who created a series, a groundbreaking television series called Queer as Folk. And I think I touched on a couple of these things in November, but he says one of his first memories of life is actually watching the first episode of the black and white show that had the Daleks in it. So it's been very important to him all his life. And he did a limited series with Christopher Eccleston in the early aughts called The Second Coming. Christopher Eccleston is a man who thinks that he's literally the reincarnated Jesus. And then then Davies wrote an adaptation of Casanova, which is where he first crossed paths with David Tennant, who played the lead role. Peter O'Toole played the elderly Casanova, and Tennant played the young Casanova. And it was as that production was wrapping that Davis and his producing partner, Julie Gardner, approached Tennant about taking over the Doctor Who part from Christopher Eccleston. So Davies catapults the show back into the public consciousness.
This is 2005.
Yeah, 2005. And he is the showrunner from 2005 to 2009. Suddenly, there is Doctor Who merchandise everywhere. They're creating action figures. They're creating, everything that like Star Wars would be slapped on a product over here.
And it wasn't just, and it just wasn't in the English market. It saturated over here to America rather quickly, I think.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I do think I've always been aware of Doctor Who, but maybe it wasn't until I was like post-college 2005 2006 that maybe more people were talking about that. I never.
Well, because there's the period from when the old show went off the air in 1989 until 2005. They called that the wilderness years because there was no new Doctor Who being made for television. There was a one-off movie in the mid-90s that was an American co-production where they were trying to relaunch the show, and they scheduled it opposite the series finale of Roseanne. So unless you were already a diehard nerd, ding, you didn't watch it. Of course, and I did mention this back in November. Yeah, that was broadcast on my birthday in 1996. So just 1 year shy of the emergence of Michael Callie into the world.
Hi guys.
So I think only
Was he on the spaceship?
He was.
yeah, only nerds who already knew about it were probably talking about it pre-2005. The show came back. It was a huge hit. A writer named Stephen Moffat wrote several episodes of the show under Davis, and his episodes are arguably the best of that era. To the point,
Some of the best television.
Oh,
ever
period.
made,
Yeah. Moffat also created a sitcom in the early aughts called Coupling, which was like a British version of Friends, but done better than Friends. Hilariously.
Hard to imagine a show done better.
And
than
then
Friends.
ruined by them bringing it over to America.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Once again,
With
Paul,
Rena
you
Sofa,
have
one of my
crystallized
favorites.
my thoughts eloquently.
Yep.
Yeah, they brought over the pilot of Coupling, shot it with an American cast, identical script. It was literally the same shooting script as what they shot in England, and it tanked over here.
I think it had a good cast too.
It
A capable
was.
cast, yeah.
The only person I remember from that is Rena Sofer.
Love her.
Who is known to General Hospital fans.
Are you a General Hospital fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like at the height of when I was watching that back in the day, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I know that I
Lois.
don't know.
And then she was evil on Ed.
Yeah.
She came between
But anyway,
Ed and Billy Bowen.
Moffat winds up taking over showrunning duties for Doctor Who in 2010. Does it until 2017. And then it gets handed over to a guy named Chris Chibnall, who had also written several episodes of Doctor Who and some of its spin-offs. And it's with Chibnall that we got the female Doctor, Jodie Whittaker.
We did.
And
And a whole bunch of nonsense.
there was some nonsense in there, but I mean,
What number Doctor are we on? No one knows.
well, yes and no.
Can I take a quick side quest here? Were you a fan of Doctor Who before the 2005? Because
Sunday Brian he had the DVDs, so I borrowed them from him for the Ninth Doctor's run, and instantly got hooked on that.
But this
And
was in your adult life.
yeah, yeah,
This wasn't.
yeah.
This wasn't like you grew up.
It was again. I vaguely remember Doctor Who. I was one of the people who watched the '96 movie
Okay.
at the time, but yeah, no, I had no real love or infatuation with.
Okay. I'm just curious if
the
it was something
series,
that you
so.
grew up with.
Nope.
Because I feel like from '89 to 2005, like that's me from
Hmm.
8 years old
Yeah.
till the time I'm 24, and maybe that's just why I don't have an affinity or a relationship with this
Yeah,
character.
I want to say that PBS was still showing
I feel like
the
it wasn't
stories
on PBS as a
on the
kid.
weekends at that time for a while. The distribution got messy with the relaunched show in 2005. Some PBS affiliates picked it up, but
I'm going to allow your
I wanna
thoughts, Martin.
I want to say the Sci-Fi Channel maybe showed the first season of it here before BBC America became a thing, and then BBC America was its obvious natural home. Except the problem with BBC America is when they show any programming that was not created in America, they're, the ad breaks get thrown in at really arbitrary times.
Like a YouTube video.
Yeah,
Or Disney Plus.
you know,
Yeah.
because in England there are no commercial breaks in the middle of programming because it's government funded. You know, everyone in the UK who watches the BBC is supposed to pay a license fee to access the content, and so there's no advertising. So when you drop commercials into a program that wasn't written to have those little mini cliffhangers, you know, to make sure you come back after the commercial break, it just feels wrong to watch it that way. So anyway, when around the time that Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker were going to leave, the BBC decided they really wanted to push the show out into the world on a bigger scale. And they started negotiations with the different streaming services saying, hey, you know, if you want to co-finance this with us, you'll get the streaming rights.
As a Doctor Who fan, how do you feel at this time? How do you feel about that?
I love it.
Okay. The
I know-
more eyes on it, the better.
Yes,
Okay.
the
okay.
more people who get to see it, the better.
You agree?
You know,
Get it? I mean, just look right now to this today. I mean,
say what you will about Disney's business practices, their marketing machine is unparalleled in the entertainment business, and they're giving Doctor Who the full court press. I mean, when my wife and I were in New York City a few weeks ago, you know, the ABC News building is right there in Times Square, and they have this gigantic video billboard on the second, third floor of the building, and there was a clip package for Doctor Who that was included in the loop of all of their programming promotion.
I guess that goes back to thinking earlier because I envision Doctor Who as the low budget, like we talked about. So as a longtime fan, with Disney coming in with the Disney money and the Disney budget, does it lose something? Because to me, as a new consumer of a Doctor Who product, I go, this is fantastic.
for me, the specials, I think that the Disney money looked garish for the most part and overdone, but which I was worried about. But transitioning into this series, I think that the Christmas special and the 2 episodes, the money looked like it was spent well, and everything looked, I think, very crisp and just really on. That's what I'm looking for.
On point.
On point. Thank you.
On fleek.
That's
Fleet, yeah.
oof.
Thank you.
That's interesting. I'll have to go back and look at the specials actually.
Yeah, it
to
was really
see-
jarring for me for
Oh,
some of
okay.
them. Yeah.
I don't remember having that same experience when I watched them. I don't know if we have a
Yeah,
shot.
it's like
of-
Star Trek
of this.
Discovery, where we've got the money to spend and we're just going to
Yeah.
overspend it.
So this is the UK Blu-ray release of the specials. It is yet to be determined, actually, if Disney is going to sell this physically. I have to assume that part of the deal, partnering with the BBC, is that Disney gets the home video rights. But the BBC published it in the UK. I don't know if it's even going to be released on a physical format here or not. So I grabbed it, and if you've got a Blu-ray player that plays discs
regions.
from different regions, then you can watch that. And I have to figure, because all of the other Doctor Who Blu-rays that have been released have been authored to play in any Blu-ray player anywhere in the world, no matter where you are. That may be apocryphal. I don't think there are people from Australia that are watching the podcast right now, but
I think it's just Jonathan.
yeah, that it may be like people in Region C aren't able to watch them, but everything's been playing in my older Blu-ray players just fine until this.
Oh.
This is locked to UK Blu-ray players, and I have to assume the only reason why they would do that is so that Disney could retain the option to release discs under their own brand label at some point in the future for North America. But I don't know that for sure.
Jonathan's letting us know he is from Australia.
Really?
No.
Okay. Yeah. But
Good day, mate.
so the 60th anniversary specials, yeah, the first Disney co-funded production brings David Tennant back as the 14th Doctor. He was the 10th originally, and he gets to be the 14th Doctor when he comes back. And I thought
I remember you explaining this last time.
yeah, there was a but I couldn't talk about the episodes last time because
'Cause
someone
I refuse
hadn't
to be spoiled.
watched them.
Yes.
Yeah, Martin's not a. So
Hate
don't fool around with
spoilers.
spoilers.
Yeah, well, but I have it from
Everyone else can be spoiled. Go
yeah,
right ahead.
I have it straight from Martin that we're okay to talk about stuff
Yep.
now. I thought there was a very cleverly crafted notion about why that face would come back to that character, and of course it's something that Russell T Davies had to come up with after Tennant and Catherine Tate had already agreed to come back. Davis had heard that the BBC was joining into this venture with Disney, and to hear Davis himself talk about it, he came back so that the BBC wouldn't screw it up when it's finally going to hit a global audience, because it drops day and date and time everywhere around the world simultaneously for the first time in its history. I think the 50th anniversary special as a one-off was broadcast everywhere
Plus the
simultaneously.
BBC player and everything else.
Yeah, so the
got
BBC
its widest possible audience.
Yeah, the BBC iPlayer in the UK and Disney Plus, literally everywhere else in the world that Disney Plus exists. So, like, we get the new episodes Fridays at 7 o'clock because that's midnight UK time on the Saturday when the episodes are available. But
That's a weird time.
yeah. So he comes up with this reason that the 10th Doctor's face comes back because ever since the first Doctor left his home planet way back at the beginning of the show, he's never really stopped fighting the good fight. He's never stopped saving planets and fighting monsters and all that kind of stuff. And that takes a toll when you've been alive for a millennium. And so that face comes back, and he seeks out his companion Donna Noble, who was Tennant's last full-time companion when he was on the show
And the greatest companion
in 2009, basically as a sign to him that it's okay to stop, that it's okay to actually just live a life, have a family, sort of. He joins into Donna's family, and they introduce this really, I personally, and this has been a very divisive addition to the mythos of the show, because normally when an incarnation of the Doctor suffers a life-threatening injury, he regenerates, changes all the cells in his body, like we talked about in November, comes out as a totally different person with the same memories, same core values, all that.
Different weird wardrobe.
Yeah, they shift the wardrobe for the new guy, but the new guy's still stuck wearing those clothes for his or her entire tenure as the Doctor until now. But they come up with this notion called bi-generation. in the last of the anniversary specials, there is this extra dimensional, godlike villain who is actually an old black and white First Doctor villain called the Toymaker.
Okay, we discussed this today.
Yeah, played by Neil
Yeah,
Patrick Harris.
who enters into this reality to go toe to toe with the Doctor again.
Kind of a mischief god.
Yeah, yeah. Just think of really is very Loki like.
Yeah.
In that regard.
But meaner.
Yeah.
More sadistic.
Zaps the Doctor with this sci-fi weapon to trigger his regeneration, but instead of him metamorphosizing into the 15th Doctor, the 15th Doctor literally splits out of him, and they're both there simultaneously.
So two doctors who are the same person, basically.
Right. So you've got David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, and now Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor.
Martin,
Shooty.
there you go. He's been working on that pronunciation.
I looked it up yesterday, and then I forgot it today, and I'm like, I got to make sure that. Yep.
Yeah. And so the two of them actually team up to defeat the Toymaker.
In a rousing game of catch.
Yes. Well, because the Toymaker is all about games and gameplay and whatnot, and the first game ever is ostensibly catch. So that's the game that they use to eventually defeat him. But of course, not before the Toymaker could say, "My legions are coming," foreshadowing, before he gets all folded up and put away.
An assaulted box.
Yeah. So now the 15th Doctor has this whole exchange with the 14th Doctor.
In his underpants.
Yeah, because the wardrobe splits in half between the two of them. So Tennant keeps half of the clothes and Gatwa has the other half. So Gatwa's first scenes as the Doctor, he's in tighty whities and a button-down shirt.
He's risky businessing it.
Yeah, and no shoes, which is fantastic. But here, I have this. I actually put this in a notes document so that I could reference it properly. So there's a conversation between the 14th Doctor, the 15th Doctor, and Donna. And the 15th Doctor says to him, "Our whole lifetime, that doctor that first met the Toymaker never ever stopped. Put on trial, exiled, the key to time, the devastation of Legopolis, Adric, River Song, all the people we lost. Sarah Jane has gone. Can you believe that for a second? And Rose, the Time War, the Pandorica, Mavic Chen." This is basically like
The who's who of
this is
who
like
events.
nerd reference a go-go here. So if you know the show,
These are your X-Men cameos.
yeah, every one of
You
these,
beat me to the
Oh,
joke,
sorry,
but
I'm
no, but
sorry.
thank you.
every one of
Yep.
these hits with the long-standing crowd. And he says, "We didn't stop for a second to say, what the hell?" And the 14th Doctor says to him, "But you're fine."
Martin, do you want to read the part of the 14th Doctor?
No, I'm good.
And 15 says, "I'm fine because you fixed yourself. We're Time Lords. We're doing rehab out of order." The notion being that the 15th Doctor splits out of the 14th Doctor with the presumption that because the 14th Doctor now gets to stop adventuring through time and space and just settle down with Donna and her husband and their daughter and just have a life, that he's healed his trauma from all of these centuries.
Yeah,
through
basically
time and space.
especially every Doctor since the 9th on has been extremely troubled.
Well, I love that line too. What was it? We're doing rehab out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing rehab out of order.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant line.
Well,
I
that's
like
Russell
that.
T Davies.
Okay,
he
I like that a lot.
He gets it. And so because the 14th Doctor stopped, settled down, and just let himself live a life, the 15th Doctor now can go on with his life with this renewed enthusiasm and energy, free of all the guilt that the previous Doctors have had about the people they couldn't save or the worlds they had to leave behind.
The Genesis. The genocide.
The genocide,
The genocide,
of
there we
his
go.
whole species
Sega Genesis.
through the
Sega
Time
Genesis,
War.
Which I guess now that I think about it explains why there's so much singing and dancing in the first 3 episodes.
Well, I feel
lighter.
honestly, I I personally believe that that is Davies hammering on the potential joyfulness of this character, the excitement of this
I thought
adventure.
he's super charismatic,
Um,
and the companion woman.
and if you're potentially introducing this series to a global audience that it's never had before, you couldn't continue on.
It disconnected for a second.
Yeah.
It looks like it's reconnecting. Give it a few seconds here.
Okay.
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay.
No, sorry, if it dropped out there, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went blind.
Jonathan, let us know if it's back.
Yeah.
It's back.
He also
Okay.
says, "I love the Jonathan says, I love the traumatic implications."
He
I
would.
believe that to that. Yeah, I know.
No, it's and
Yeah.
you know
He
I
loves drama.
I love that they address it in the script.
Makes it money.
That anyone with the life that this character has had, I mean, I know we're trying to keep light and fluffy with the colorful metaphors, but the Doctor has seen some shit.
Nanny
And
filter.
and the fact that he's never, yeah, the Doctor has seen some excrement. And so now, because the 14th Doctor addressed it, now the 15th Doctor is free to just have these freewheeling adventures. He still has all the memories, he still has all the emotions that he had. And that's another thing that they brought into it with Tennant returning as the 14th Doctor is he brought an emotional vulnerability to the character that had not been built into his character before that. The Doctor being an alien, the Doctor having this very unique life, he keeps regenerating and keeps on going when his companions, one by one, all leave him one way or the other. Davis has written many times throughout the show, the one adventure the Doctor could never have was a day-to-day linear life. And now he can. The 14th Doctor can do that. And they even left it cleverly open enough that if they need to involve him in something else, the last thing the 15th Doctor does before sending 14 on his way to go live with the nobles,
Because this chaotic energy is
because
still
there's
around
still
from
this
the
chaos
Toymaker.
energy from the Toymaker, he takes one of these like test your strength carnival mallets, whammies on the side of the TARDIS, and splits the TARDIS in two so
there's now
that he
2.
gets one and 14 can still have his own.
So if they need some ratings, they have it built right in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, is Tennant involved in this season? But the
No.
answer is no. But
No.
But the door's open.
Disney probably doesn't have that kind of money right
Now, this brings me to an interesting thing that has not been addressed via dialogue or plot since the specials. But one of the other things that Davies did as the showrunner better than anybody before or since was to keep the show in the public consciousness between episodes by every week in the UK anyway, there is a behind the scenes special that airs right after that week's episode that deconstructs what went into the making of. It's like a half-hour long.
I love that stuff. I love.
Thing.
Yeah, they did it for like the first 4 seasons of series of the new stuff. Or?
Six,
yeah.
actually. Matt Smith.
I was very
they
sad when
kept
they
it for
stopped
2
it.
years. It used to be called
Yeah, I was trying to think what it was.
Doctor Who Confidential.
Yeah.
But Stephen Moffat, as the showrunner, sort of let it go by the wayside because he didn't have the same degree of engagement with the fans that Davis had. But Davies has brought it back. Now it's called Doctor Who Unleashed. It's not available on Disney Plus with the episodes. I'm not
Is it
sure
like a
why
Talking
that
Dead?
is.
Yeah, no, it's more behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
There's
not
like
a.
interview. They like just talk to people as they're doing things. You get a lot of behind the scenes why they were.
It's like the bonus material
Yeah.
on a DVD.
Yeah.
I still love it though. Any process stuff. I
Or it's like a
want to see how they make
documentary.
the sausage. That's interesting to me.
What I will say is that there are Doctor Who YouTube channels that capture these Doctor Who Unleashed episodes and are posting them because they're not otherwise available outside the UK. So they are out there if you're interested in finding them, just not officially. Well, so between the commentaries that were recorded for the specials and these behind the scenes thing, Davies has brought up some interesting notions that I assume will have to play out at some point over the course of this new season. He's talked about, the Toymaker's legions that are hinted at in that one sentence. Davies talks about there is this pantheon of gods that is entering our reality. Maestro from the second episode, The Devil's Cord, is one of this pantheon.
I didn't know the name Maestro. Oh my gosh. The acting, the expressiveness.
Oh, Jinx Monsoon
Which
killed that role.
Martin was kind of explaining him to me as well.
No, she was phenomenal
They.
in that character.
It was the joke at the beginning.
Yeah. It's they. I looked it up because I wanted to make sure when I was talking.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that's interesting because in the documentary, in the Doctor Who Unleashed for the episode, she and they are used interchangeably to address.
When they're doing their Jinx Monsoon drag, they prefer she for that, I guess. And then
no, that makes sense.
Okay, all right.
So this pantheon is coming, and there are hints in the Devil's Cord. There is the one who waits, and that was even referenced by the Toymaker in his episode. He says, "I came to this universe with such delight, and I played them all, Doctor. I toyed with supernovas, turned galaxies into spinning tops. I gambled with God and made him a jack-in-the-box. I made a jigsaw out of your history. Did you like it? The master was dying and begged for his life with one final game, and when he lost, I sealed him for all eternity inside my gold tooth. There's only one player I didn't dare face, the one who waits. I saw it hiding, and I ran. But that's someone else's game."
So, and I really feel bad for every actor who's got to come up with one of these characters after Neil Patrick Harris and Jinx Monsoon, because they were just so over the top, eating the scenery, doing it's just amazing stuff.
Not a crumb left over, especially after the Devil's Cord this week. So the one who waits, Davis has always been very good at seeding throughout the season whatever the end of season big bad is going to be.
Yeah, I was explaining to Evan that the first series of Doctor Who, the Ninth Doctor, how it was kind of like, oh, you're finding out towards the end of the series that all these things are tying together and everything had a reason, and it was brilliant. And
Davies did it so much better than Moffat ever did. Davies laid these clues that you don't even realize are clues.
Subtly.
Yeah.
Until you get to the last 2 or 3 episodes of the season, and then you see all the threads pull it together, and it's like, oh my God, that's like some incredible writing. What Moffat did instead was he would beat you over the head in the first 2 episodes with what the end of season thing was going to be, and then builds it up so much over the course of the season that no payoff he could possibly write for the finale could live up to the hype that he had built up from the first moments of the season.
On that note, Bipple Nip says meep meep, whatever that means.
Eat meat. Well, that's actually, I don't know if you want to put it on that camera.
Look at the white thing on there.
The
white creature.
second image.
Little guy right up here.
The little white alien creature, originally designed and created by comic artist extraordinaire Dave Gibbons.
Ooh.
Ah, very cool.
Who was doing the art for the comic strips in Doctor Who magazine in the early '80s. He created he created the look of the Meep because the first of the specials is an adaptation of one of these Doctor Who magazine comic strips called The Star Beast. So thank you for the Eat Meep. The Meep approves. And there's even like seeding at the end of that episode. The Meep refers to the boss, whoever it is that creature reports to as being a big bad. And the 14th Doctor makes some funny remark about, cryptic. I hate cryptic. But that's something this show does incredibly well. So we've got the show back. New episodes dropping on Fridays. Co-production Disney and the BBC. And just Ncuti Gatwa has such exuberance
Martin, what's his name?
to him.
Ncuti.
And I love his dynamic with his companion, Ruby Sunday. played effervescently by Millie Gibson,
Who's only 19 years old.
who is the same age that the Rose Tyler
Well, I was
character
going to say,
was.
her introduction
in-
was very Rose Tyler-esque, and I loved that.
That was one of the first things I said was the dynamic between the two of them feels very much like the Ninth Doctor and Rose, which is a wonderful thing.
Yep.
Because
Microphone.
it's been said for decades about this show that the companion character is the audience's way into the show. We need to relate to them, we need to identify with them, we need to care what happens to them.
We need to be enticed to get that key, just like every companion is.
Right. It's like you want to live your life in such a way that the Doctor would give you a key to the TARDIS. And I think this character is well on her way to that. I'm excited to see where it goes. We're only getting 8 episodes this season.
Okay.
That's Jodie Whittaker numbers.
And Davis said that was
Weekly?
Yeah.
Every Friday.
So we got the first 2
Is this our
last
next
week.
appointment?
Maybe, if you want to.
So we've got
I'm game for it.
six more episodes to go. Davis said that was mostly by design. They wanted to make sure that with the budget that they had, each episode was getting the full treatment. But we could most likely expect subsequent seasons to be longer than this.
And these are long episodes anyway. They're borderline hour.
Oh, sure.
So it's,
Yeah, I think at one
You're
point in
getting
time
on
I asked you, I go, is this still the same episode?
Yeah.
It's like walking out of the room like it's not a 2-parter or something.
Yeah.
Right?
And this next week coming up is Stephen Moffat's first return as writer for the show since 2017. His final episode. It's called Boom, and it's supposedly a very tense thriller about the Doctor and Ruby going to a war-torn planet and potentially terrifying things ensuing. And they just announced this week that Moffat has also written what will be the Christmas special that airs at the end of this year.
okay. That makes sense. I thought they were talking about the Christmas special that already happened, and I
No.
was like, it's wasn't right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's cool because I think Moffat does his best work when he is really just a writer for hire and not in charge of the whole thing.
Okay.
And hopefully that will continue to be true. On the Doctor Who point, there's one other thing that I had in my notes here that I wanted to evoke that I didn't remember to do
I
last
have 2
time.
questions for you as well later.
Oh no, great! I would love to.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to.
Jonathan real quickly also said I'm a big Moffat fan. He did some incredible 10 and 11 episodes. So
Yep. When Moffat is good, he's among the best TV writers going. When he's up his own ass about a point that he thinks is clever, it's insufferable.
Okay.
Kind of like me, frankly, if I'm being honest about
There's
it.
very, very good, and then there's the exit of the ponds.
You know, yeah. So, you guys remember Craig Ferguson,
Mhm.
Scottish comedian,
Yep.
had the late night show.
Yep.
Enormous Doctor Who fan.
Mhm.
Okay, he even had like a toy TARDIS on his desk for the entire run of his show. He did a Doctor Who special.
underrated
Very.
talk show host.
Yeah.
Oh, he's great.
A very unique lane he carved.
Very funny stand-up comedian too.
But he did a whole Doctor Who special episode one night. He had Matt Smith and Karen Gillan on during their run as the 11th Doctor and Amy Pond. And his description of Doctor Who sums it up so much better than that rambling nonsense I tried to cram in at the end of the podcast back in November. You said, 30 seconds, whatever, go. And I just took a big steaming dump all over the opportunity, and I just want to
I remember the steaming.
I want to correct the record with Craig Ferguson's description of what Doctor Who is. It says, one thing is consistent, though, and this is why the show is so beloved by geeks and nerds. It's all about the triumph of intellect and romance over brute force and cynicism. And that sums it up. That really is. There's a reason why the Doctor carries a screwdriver instead of a gun. He's not a Wild West hero that shoots his way out of a situation, though that has happened.
I'm just going to say that. Yeah, we did get
occasionally.
that.
But he goes around the universe with a screwdriver because he feels like it's his job to fix things that are broken.
I like that a lot.
And, so that's really what the appeal of this show is. It shows the best and worst characteristics of people, but the Doctor will always, always, always choose to do what's right.
Unless there's a Dalek involved.
Well, but maybe not now.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
Because 14 allegedly resolved so much of the Doctor's trauma that it's entirely possible that if Ncuti gets the opportunity to encounter the Daleks, which is not going to happen this season.
Yeah, they do want to rely on old stuff.
It might be a whole different ballgame than what we've seen for the last 19 years of the show.
I was actually in Space Babies concerned that the...
Wait, you were in Space Babies?
I was. That the Boogeyman, they were actually going to kill it off.
The Bougie Man?
Yeah, the Bougie Man.
No, but boy... What,
I'm like, okay, this is the good moment. This is where he's going to save it because it is
this is the... But
a life worthwhile.
So this is what Joss Whedon couldn't bring himself to do with the conclusion of Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
When Fluffy, my cute white alien, gets sucked out the little hole in the glass in the spaceship in Alien Resurrection. Yeah, no, I think maybe subconsciously that was Davies saying, here's how that should have ended. But
Martin, you have a question.
2 questions.
You have
First
several
question
questions.
is, interesting design on the sonic screwdriver. Have we ever, I don't really know everybody's screwdriver, but they've always been the cylindrical...
Funny you should mention that.
It wasn't planned.
Because I made a point, if we want to put this on the camera,
Yes, sir.
and then I'll have you swipe to the next picture in a minute. So that is the screwdriver that they gave to the 14th Doctor for all of his 3 episodes. And that's an amalgam of all of the screwdrivers of the modern era Doctors. There are bits and pieces of 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I think there's a little nub of 13s in there too, which was made from spoons, but that's a whole other story. So Tennant gets that to play with in his 3 episodes, and it does some funky stuff that we've never seen the screwdriver do before. If you want to swipe to the next one.
Yeah, I was explaining to Evan that it's basically the Batman's utility belt.
This is Ncuti's screwdriver. Looks totally different than any sonic screwdriver we've ever had before. They, like Martin said, they've all been this sort of cylindrical wand.
If I'm a
lightsaber.
Disney guy, I'm saying that's too lightsaber-esque, and we got to change it to make it something unique.
I mean, that's entirely possible.
It's also, but it predates it. A lightsaber.
You know what? But who's making more money
no,
right
that's
now?
fair.
I don't know. That would be my take.
And there's actually, God, I wish I had thought to look it up ahead of time. But etched on the back of that screwdriver, because Ncuti, even though he was raised in Scotland, his family is from Rwanda. And there is a Rwandan proverb that's actually etched into the back of his
Very cool
screwdriver. And we haven't gotten to see much of what 15 screwdriver can do, but hopefully we will. That does remind me of one other interesting thing that the door has been opened for. Actually, I started talking about things that Davies had said in these behind-the-scenes features. One of the things he's talked about is Doctor Who this season is going to go to some more overtly supernatural-driven and magic-driven things instead of everything being based in some sort of sci-fi logic. There is going to be some bonkers things happening that defy sci-fi conventions and are more they're more fantasy based.
It started with the goblins.
Right, started with the goblins in the Christmas episode.
Yeah, I had to ask Martin. I go, are there regular goblins in this?
No.
And he's like, no.
Like, not that I know of.
No, monsters have always been aliens. Anything resembling magic in the show has always had some kind of sci-fi technobabble explanation. And this season, those rules apparently are not going to apply anymore. At least as long as this storyline about the pantheon of gods from the Toymaker is a live story element. because he just decided he wanted to play with the format a little bit. He wanted to just take it somewhere it hadn't gone before. And what better time than with this sort of global streaming relaunch? Let's open the rules up. Which, frankly, is the only reason I can think of why a Doctor Who episode would end with a full-on song and dance number
yeah,
without anybody batting an effing eye about it.
Again, as somebody who, it looks like we just dropped again. We'll wait a few more seconds here. We've bad internet this week at the comic shop.
Really bad.
Um,
We shall run off the camera.
all right, here we go. Which didn't. Again, I have no context for a lot of this stuff. So like the singing and dancing, like I don't know, I don't mind it. It's kind of fun. It's kind of like a palate cleanse, you know.
The dance number itself was fantastic. Like in and of itself, if you're looking at if you want to release a music video for this season of Doctor Who, that's a pretty great, joyful video, and it makes sense to a point within the context of the episode. We've restored music to the world, and so everyone's got this sort of joyful release of musical enthusiasm that comes with it, and that's great. But then you get the Doctor and Ruby sort of doing the thing along the zephyrs of Abbey Road, where the things are lighting up, like the big keyboard with Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia. And I'm like, and nobody's going to say anything? Like, nobody's going to, I mean, just have somebody say, well, that was a hell of a thing. Just so that we know that the people in universe in that moment are aware that something like that just happened.
They do. Martin, you pointed this out. A little bit of a fourth wall break. Where
Yeah,
sometimes
they keep. There's like I think almost every episode so far has had someone facing camera and saying something.
Yeah.
Which with my next question.
And,
But
and maybe, I mean, and maybe
was that your question?
my next question was it's related. The end of the Christmas special, or throughout the Christmas special, there's the older woman on her porch.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
she
yeah.
doesn't recognize the TARDIS, but she recognizes it eventually for what it is.
Yeah.
And do we have? Is there
Oh,
any?
Mrs. Flood.
Yeah. Is there
That's her
any
name.
clues, or does she have any historical thing, or is this all?
Nope, that's
Okay.
new, and that's a thing that Davies hammered in the behind-the-scenes stuff. Is just keep an eye out because she will be important. And maybe the fourth wall breaks. Maybe the song and dance number. Maybe this stuff is all typical of Davis writing, where it doesn't have to make sense in this moment. It will thread together as something by the end of the
When
season.
Deadpool shows up.
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
Synergy.
Maybe
Synergy.
maybe that's the in the trailer, the Doctor Strange portal that Deadpool and Wolverine jump through. Maybe they jump into Doctor Who and they just couldn't show us in that trailer
That'd
yet.
be great. That would
Oh
be-
my God, I would die.
We had to cancel Scott's next appearance. He's dead.
Yeah, but the smile hit before the rigor set in, so he's really happy about it.
He approved.
Yeah.
Or the rigors.
Yeah. Another interesting thing Davies said, and again, this hasn't been raised in universe anywhere, on the topic of bi-generation. So 14 splits off into 15 and they're both there. Davies said that has actually, because the Toymaker is not of this universe and has this godlike power, he said he made a jigsaw of the Doctor's life. That bi-generation, according to Davies, has now rippled back through time. So every single regeneration the Doctor has ever had has become a bi-generation. So, so when the first Doctor regenerates into the second Doctor, now instead of it having been a metamorphosis, the first Doctor is still out there somewhere. And
Looking for his
likewise,
underpants.
all the way through.
Yes.
And he said that is canon, that is a thing, and now it gives them the ability to bring back the surviving Doctor actors as they look now,
Because they can age.
without having to explain why they don't look the same as they did 40 years
cool.
ago.
That's cool.
That adds a lot of mavity to the storytelling possibilities.
Yeah. Well, and there was this thing that was happening in the UK around the time of the anniversary specials called Tales of the TARDIS. And there were these specially filmed segments that were like bookends for a classic era episode.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And there was this thing called the Remembered TARDIS that was the set for these little vignettes. And it was hodgepodge together from bits and pieces of every Doctor's TARDIS from throughout the history of the show. And a classic era Doctor and one of their companions would manifest themselves in this memory TARDIS to address some character arc thing or some plot arc thing that back in the day, because the writing never really got that deep with the characters, they never bothered to address. So like the fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, he's one of the only Doctors in the classic era who had a companion who was killed
Not a very good doctor.
by one of their enemies, in this
And they
case
got
the
worse.
Cybermen. And so that Doctor and one of his companions find themselves in this remembered TARDIS to talk about what happened to this other companion character, Adric, and to actually try to resolve some of the unresolved guilt that they had over it. And they use this as the bookends to lead into the episode where Adric dies. So they start talking about it, and it's like the episode plays as their memory of the circumstances, and then they come back to the other side of the bookend and tie it off. So I have to believe that those newly filmed bits and this detail about bi-generation being a thing means that we can probably expect to see some of these old Doctors back in context on the show in some capacity. Maybe not in the proper seasonal episodes, but in more of this kind of bonus spin-off-y thing. And I think that would be cool as hell. What do you like it?
Filter.
Okay. Cool
Michael, do you have
as
anything?
I
Netherrealm.
don't have too much. I'm just enjoying all this Doctor.
Do you want to segue over quickly for a few minutes on X-Men?
Do you want to talk X-Men?
Yeah.
Did you ask all the questions you wanted to
Yeah,
ask?
yeah, those are the two. I just was curious if I didn't want to. I don't like to look things up because there's spoilers, obviously.
yeah.
So. Yeah,
Oh,
X-Men
okay.
'97, Evan.
Go ahead.
Did you see it?
X-Men '97. I was very grateful that this week's episode was not spoiled for me. Wednesday morning, somebody decided to make a meme from the very final panel of last week's episode. So before I had the chance to watch it or anything, it had been spoiled for me. Unfortunately, this episode was a lot of fun. Tons and tons of cameos from anyone and everyone you could have really asked for.
And T'Chaka.
And Chaka, yes, for some reason. But you put it best on Facebook, Mr. Bandla. Way to stick the landing.
Asterisks except for the Phoenix.
Except for the Phoenix. That was a little half.
The Phoenix. There was the only thing I didn't like about the last episode that just felt like. I don't know.
Frankly, that's the only beat that struck wrong with me throughout the season was the way they glossed over Madeline Pryor and the Goblin Queen.
Yes.
That needed more space to breathe.
Yeah.
Everything needed more space to breathe. That was, here we're going to do 15 to 20 years worth of X-Men history in 9 episodes of a cartoon, and just like, whoa. Can we have 5 minutes to think about the thousands of people that just died in the show? Let's pump the brakes.
Can we take a moment to do the math on how many people actually died when Magneto did his EM pulse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kaiju
fair.
Killer 76. Love the early Doctors. My favorite is Tom Baker.
Yes, absolutely. And he just turned 90 in January.
Good for him.
I don't ever want to do that.
He looks great. Like, honestly, he looks fantastic. And he's still recording Big
The audio
Finish
books,
audio
yeah.
dramas. Like, that's madness. Anyway, but X-Men '97 has just blown all of my expectations for it out of the water. I was never a huge fan of the show originally back in the '90s.
Oh, that's your problem.
Only because it ran at the same time as Batman the Animated Series, and the animation looked incredibly cheap in comparison. And I thought that even though they were beholden to the rules of Saturday morning television, I just felt I don't know. I mean, granted, I was in my early 20s and up my own ass quite a bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're.
For me being 92, I'm 11 years old.
Yeah.
Like I'm just right in the pocket for this stuff. So.
Oh no, and for the audience, it was intended for. I imagine it was pretty mind blowing.
Oh yeah.
You know, pretty like they went places in that show because I went back and rewatched a handful of the episodes before '97 started, and I imagine that for a younger demographic, this was probably among the most complex storytelling you had seen in animation at that point.
Martin and I talk about it all the time. That like when people go, I want to get into the X-Men. What books do you recommend reading?
The
And really, it
animated
comes
series.
down to watch the original TV
Yep.
show.
Find
Like
your
that's
favorite stories.
yeah.
You meet all the characters. You'll get a slight backstory on most of them. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I did appreciate it more in the rewatch recently than I did at the time when it was first broadcast.
Except for the last season.
I had
Yeah.
I had some issues. I thought some of the voice acting in the old show was not great. But then again, I was using Batman as my basis for comparison, where you
Which
had
is such an iconic,
every
visually iconic
so many
show.
famous people lining up to play in that sandbox. That being said, though, X-Men '97, they kept the right people
Storm.
in the roles. They kept Storm, they kept Beast,
Storm's
they kept
great.
Rogue, they kept Wolverine, and those actors just kill it. And I love the fact that even the ones that they recast were given smaller roles in X-Men '97. So like the government liaison lady, who is
Val Cooper. Yep.
yeah, Val Cooper was Jean Grey
Yes.
in the
Originally.
original run.
Cable was Gambit.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Jonathan Legman said, "Love the cameos in the X-Men finales. I want a Hell's Kitchen animated series now. The
Yep.
20 seconds,
Yep.
15 seconds of Daredevil,
Oh my
and then
God.
Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak
Dagger.
and Dagger.
And the way that Hell's Kitchen was visually conceived, I thought looked super great. Like it
For throwaway.
for a
Yeah.
a throwaway 15 seconds in a much larger
They
universe. Like,
captured the essence of those characters so well
Yep.
without them
Right.
saying a word.
right? That was my favorite cameo though.
Yeah.
The Daredevil, and then when Cloak and Dagger were there together, it's like, oh man, this is really.
Well,
cool.
and then the quick shot of Peter Parker and
Yep.
MJ in
Yep.
front of the big store
It
window.
took us a second. I think we both thought the second thing that we're looking. And I'm like, wait, that
It was
looks
like
Mary-
pause. That's Mary
It
Jane.
looks like
Yeah.
Mary Jane. Oh, that's Mary Jane and Peter.
Which I guess creates kind of a problem continuity-wise. They were talking about Mary Jane disappears at the end, or is abducted, or I forgot what's actually on
Yeah.
the Spider-Man animated series, and so everyone's like, "Oh, how did he find her?" And Joe Samuels came and said, "Actually, those episodes aired in 1998, so the continuity glitch is not actually there."
Okay, so yeah, that's fun.
Joe also pointed out that Iron Man appears in his CBS
Yes, costume.
costume, where the other shows were the Fox version
equivalent.
characters. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Okay,
Joe's had a couple of really
Joe-
good calls on X-Men '97.
I think
Joe
I think
cheats.
He cheats.
I'm gonna call him out right now.
Yeah, he reads a good online
He
forum
loves the
that just breaks
interwebs.
down all the little
Yeah.
but then he comes in and shares them with us. It's great. So.
Yeah, I gotta go on YouTube and try and find a smash up of all the opening credit changes.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
yeah, that's fun. I think that's even something else that I appreciate about this iteration of that series is the Newton Brothers remix of the opening theme
The music.
is light years better. I mean, obviously, you can't beat that melody, like the tune that was composed by Shuki Levy
that sounds right.
originally. The tune is iconic. I just remember back in the day, the way the music when you've got essentially the splash page of them running, the groups running at each other, the keyboard in there does the like it's like really screechy,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's still there, but they bury it underneath like the mid-range melody, like fixed the only thing I ever looked askance at about the theme originally.
The music and the sound design, I think, for the show are as excellent as the animation. As somebody who dabbles in audio stuff very
Yeah.
poorly, as you can tell, but I took music production classes in college, a couple of them. I've got a little studio at home. I actually re-recorded the X-Men theme during the pandemic because I was bored and I wanted to do a cover of the song.
Yeah.
But they do an excellent job with all the different interpretations of the theme.
The
Yep.
somber
And then-
one for the end of the Genosha episode.
Oh.
Was just
Yeah.
Oh,
But
amazing.
beyond that, the audio
Heart-wrenching.
design for the characters and the
Mhm.
effects, and it's good voice acting, but all the little sound effects that I'm picking up on, I go, boy, this
Yeah, excellent
is
sound mixing.
really well done.
no, and with animation, I mean, the sound is every bit as important as the quality of animation.
I just
Like,
don't ever know a cartoon that I've watched where I was like so fixated by, oh wow, that was a really good audio sequence. Like I just don't think of that stuff normally.
and I've been incredibly impressed by the quality of the animation.
First time in chat, Troa Barton 2, Let's Go X-Men finale. Yeah.
Oh, I just
I do wish those 3 episodes had dropped in the same day, though.
Yeah.
like as a mini
Yeah.
feature.
I would just love that, I think.
Yeah, but okay, so why do you think they do the thing they do with the Phoenix, where they just conveniently bring it back as a Deus Ex Machina?
Because they had they wrote themselves into a predicament.
They-
I think they would have peppered something in the earlier episodes.
They've mentioned it so many times earlier on. It seemed to be the only thing they hadn't really brought in from the Claremont stuff, to my knowledge, anyways. It hadn't already been touched on earlier.
I really hoped it was Madeline, but
Yeah.
Troa Barton 2 says, and they took out the bell sound for the theme. Yes,
Oh.
I don't think there's that dong.
Bong. Yeah, no, that's true.
oh yeah,
No, good
the
catch.
kicker, yeah.
Good point.
Mm.
Um,
I do think the Phoenix was, they dug a hole too deep. That Bastion was just out of control. I just don't like it. Just felt very cheap. Like, oh, this is the solution. But then, like, 15 more things happened.
And you
after
forget
that.
about it.
You
You're like,
forget
yeah.
about it.
but it's like the fact that they unpack what should have been a can of worms that could not be,
Yeah.
recollected. They just pop it in when they need it and then pop it out when
Yeah.
they've resolved it. I'm just like, okay, that's a little cheap, guys. That undercuts. Like, everybody should be petrified
Yeah.
of the Phoenix
Yes.
reemerging, and the fact that it just pops up as a plot convenience
Hey,
and then
guys!
goes away. Undercuts. Like, if they ever need to use it again for something more serious,
Yeah,
it'll be harder to take it seriously.
Well, I feel like that's how Phoenix is treated in the comics. That like
Yeah.
It definitely
the first
got
iteration, you're
there.
like, whoa, and now like the Phoenix is visiting
Well,
everybody.
it's like the Weeping
eh.
Angels in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It's every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
you bring it back,
It
it
Or in
loses
Star Trek,
its
yeah.
power. It loses its effectiveness as a frightening thing. It's like you can only dip into that well so many times. But yeah, so where we find our heroes at the end of the finale,
Oh my goodness. I'm
scattered through time and
so
space,
So excited.
And some
for
missing.
Ancient Egypt
and
stuff.
some unaccounted for.
Yeah, what was it, Wolverine and
and
Morph?
probably more. We don't know.
Well,
He could be anything. So
yeah.
Yeah, so we have both iterations of Apocalypse. We have Apocalypse and Ensabanur,
Yes.
which is super interesting.
So excited for that.
Yeah, where else were they split in 2 or split in 3 groups?
You saw 2,
too. Yeah.
but again, some people are unaccounted.
Just
for.
unaccounted
Yeah.
for. So yeah, I wonder what kind of timey-wimey shenanigans we're going to get up to in season 2, and when we're even going to get season 2, because
June
I think July 25th was, or July 2. Wow.
2025.
Thank you.
But it's
Next
either,
summer.
it's either
Yeah.
June or July.
Yeah.
okay,
It's going to be a while.
yeah, that makes sense. And I would rather them
Take their
pump the
time,
brakes
do it
on
right.
it, take the
Yeah.
time, and do it
Yeah,
properly.
because they obviously had a break during all the strikes and things.
Right.
Working on that.
Yeah, no, Bo DiMaio as the showrunner, I mean, just had such a clear vision of what this could and should be, and I think there was, I don't know, I found myself, in spite of myself, because normally, as a literature guy, as an English teacher guy, it's hard to do melodrama well.
Yes.
without it coming across as stilted or cheesy or it's like there is Star Wars prequel level stilted melodramatic dialogue, but then on the other side, thankfully, there is X-Men 97 exaggerated melodramatic dialogue, and I was hanging on every freaking word.
Yes, I agree 100%. That there were some moments where you're like, oh, I want to say that this is corny, but it was just like, but it's just it's the moment that I
Go
wanted.
back and read the Claremont books from the early 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it was written. But man, when I was a kid, reading the Dark Phoenix books, reading the Brood saga, reading all of that stuff back in the 80s, I mean, I would sit there as a tween, early teenager, like on the verge of tears reading some of this stuff because it was so beautifully written, even though it was written in a style that no actual human person walking this earth would speak. It was just crafted with such care that I was here for all of it, and I felt the same way watching this season of this show that I did reading those books 40 years ago.
Jonathan Legaman, I don't mind Gene having residual Phoenix energy, but I get the undercutting. Football MM, I believe the Phoenix Force was referenced as wanting to help, particularly for Cable.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the dialogue on the
You are
playthrough today.
correct.
Okay.
That was how the Phoenix Force.
That's one of the
came
things
back.
I wanted to look at.
Yes. Apparently, Jean saw her son in danger, and that allowed her to channel the Phoenix Force energy. There was a lot of great family dynamic, the whole father-son, father-son thing with
Scott
Cable
and Jean
Scott.
projecting themselves into the diner booth to have that conversation.
Brought
with
Aaron Lee to
Cable.
tears.
Holy
I
crap!
don't think he was joking.
He wasn't.
I don't think he was joking.
You know,
I think
the
he said
one thing
that
father
scene
wouldn't
really
do.
like.
That felt to me like Scott and Jean on the mountainside before all of the X-Men go to the moon to fight the Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was just gorgeous and just pitched perfectly so it wasn't too heavy-handed, but it said everything it needed to say to convey that, Scott and Jean really have, as much as anybody in that situation could, made their peace with the reality of those circumstances. And
Yeah, we dropped out again.
Okay.
It looks like it's back up streaming, but I think we'll wrap it up here.
yeah, I just think it was among the most compelling beats that Scott had in the show. Like, Cyclops is a lot like Captain America for me. Like, it's hard to depict him in a way where he's not just a cardboard cutout.
Yes.
I thought this was a great depiction
Dave.
of Cyclops.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
the
so
best
too.
depiction.
I think so too.
I don't really care for Cyclops.
No, it's hard. Like I say, it's hard to do well, but they did it.
Mhm.
Like, they knew exactly how to go at it, and I respect it.
I love the Porsche scene from the
Yeah.
other. I just loved
It's
it.
just a Porsche.
It's
Yeah,
great.
the
It's just a great family moment, I thought, and then it'll be interesting to see what happens when they get to raise their son in the future
I know. It's all good.
with
All
their
right.
daughter.
It's great.
Final thoughts, Martin.
Good week for entertainment.
Great
Yeah.
week for entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, geez, if you've got X-Men, Doctor Who,
Death Trap.
Star Trek,
Death Trap.
because
Oh, yeah.
Discovery's still going, live theater in the Port City. Last week we had the Bad Batch finale for Star Wars, so like all of this great nerd entertainment is just in peak form right now, and I just wish I could go back in time, either via TARDIS or by
Slide by one.
Cable's Gizmo or
Like that, yeah.
whatever, and tell sixth grade me that it's all going to be okay.
40 years from now, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be
Just
great.
hang in there until
You
then.
gotta hang
You're gonna have
in.
carpal tunnel from posting all these
No,
things
hang
every
in
day.
there, and you're actually going to meet a girl who acts like she hates all of your crap, but really she shows up for it anyway. So it's all going to be good. It's all going to be good.
That's how we end it.
That's a great way to end it.
I believe in love again.
I believe in
Beat
love
me
again.
to it.
Love again.
It's right there.
Excellent. Brought it back around. You've been watching The Comic Shop does a podcast with me, Evan Coy.
I'm Michael Callie.
We're here with regular guest star.
Scott Bandla. Thanks for having me
And
back,
special,
guys.
special guest star,
Me, missing Aaron Lee.
missing Aaron Lee. Apologies.
Damn it, Aaron.
To
Apologies to Jack Kirby.
Sorry, buddy.
And Aaron Lee.
Have a good night, everybody.